I know I sometimes address it, but the whole like nerd shrine thing must be really funny for a lot of people. It's a little out of hand. All right, I'm a little sick this week, but good power through. Been working on a project that I'm really excited to show y'all. Been working all week on a project for this newsletter and just for this in general. I think I've talked a lot about yield, but not really concretely. Really quickly, what is yield? A while back, I had a separate imprint called Motor Collective. It was a big, complicated idea of live shows, events, a record label, a collective of artists, ostensibly, though to be honest, I never really gave up enough control for that to be true. And we had a visual artists that were very integral to the vibe of the live shows, the Cold Brew Collective guys who were amazing. Just, it was a really fun, but really taxing group effort at sort of focusing on live synth dance music of all types, but that focused on texture and tone and live improvisation. It was a lot of work. We did some amazing stuff. Uh, Burnt out on it pretty hard. It was a big part of my burnout. But I'm very proud of it. And there's also this whole element of other types of electronic music, other types of dance that felt very serious and self-serious and trying really hard to impress the important people in dance music at the time. And I like all that stuff still to this day. There's so much stuff about that I like. There's also this hidden thing of like, I like stuff that's a little bit more mainstream or a little bit more uncool, or a lot of stuff that was influential to me of a certain time period. And so Yield is definitely I've talked about it being a conscious choice to go back to a certain period of time that was integral to me, find artists who are mining that stuff for value in the same way we've mined, everybody did mine black metal and noise and twee folk. And, like there's been so many periods of like, we've taken a look back at different styles from garage rock to whatever, lots of easy listening, lots of Windham Hill, like all these things that were uncool at times or just not as popular currently, and mine them for the value that they create. Like, what's the best part of these, and how can that be pushed on top of the technologies and the innovations we've had since then, and what's popular now? I think a certain strain of stuff, not one type of thing, but a certain grouping of things that, in my mind, kind of all spring forth from the same place, kind of a post early 90s, post drum and bass, post all these sort of revolutions that happened. And then as things got bigger, they either went in sort of an IDM and post-rock direction in the underground, or they went kind of in these more accessible directions commercially. And then a lot of artists took that and did interesting things in the early 2000s. I find all that stuff really interesting. Some of it's really compelling to me. I mean, if you listen to certain podcasts that I've been involved in, I've really admitted to being a weird Chemical Brothers head even. So anyways, I do have a hard time talking about Yield without saying, hey, Yield is just this cosplay of a time period or a certain genre, because it isn't. And that would be unfair to the artists that I'm gathering under Yield, because it's their work, and their work is very of themselves and honest and good and very modern too. So like, it isn't that the individual works were even conceived to be part of Yield or this idea. It's that once I found these things, I said, oh, that all fits into the Yield ideal to me very well. And as things have come across my plate, it's helped me define Yield. In a lot of ways, Yield is a counterfactual or a evolution off of Motor. I mean, I think when I hit on Yield, it definitely was the idea of, it didn't hurt that the first one was Motor and Ford and aggressive and very futurist in all its designs. And then it was taking from, capital F futurism, which is vaguely a fascistic aesthetic, to be honest, and saying slow down and going more in a psychedelic way. And sort of it's the opposite. And that's sort of the meaning of Yield. The Yield, as you'll see, has a tagline of give up and give in, or give up, give in. It doesn't even have the and. And it's both a message to myself of sort of giving up trying to ignore these influences that I love, and in fact trying to incorporate those influences that I love, which, yeah, no shit, we all should be doing that. That's like not a revolutionary idea, but sometimes you have to get over your own bullshit. And then also telling the listener to like come on the ride. And it's also just being I enjoy earnestness, and I enjoy, there was kind of, for all the post-irony sort of era of stuff in the 90s, there was a directness to its psychedelic movements, you know, and sort of, it was very direct in its sort of like, especially in like rave culture and stuff, of like, we are going to drop out, you know, this is, you're supposed to be able to give yourself over. And I think a lot of the music was, while I wasn't participating because I was pretty young, there's sort of this vision that the records help me, certain records help me experience, of like, yeah, giving over to the music and whatnot, that I then really loved in experience ecstatic music, as I like to refer to sort of the breadth of what I've done in the last 20 years with Debacle and the scenes around Debacle. A lot of that ecstatic music has that same idea. And I sort of like to make the case that like crossover ecstatic music, crossover psychedelic music is really important, because it's how you find more people, and it's also just really good records. Oh, and that's the other thing about Yield, is the last 10 years of working with vinyl, more than that, and on Motor, I kind of was stretching at the boundaries of like being so singles oriented, and also being a very, you know, one side of vinyl. There's this hegemony of like 19-minute sides that I sort of chafed against. And I was thinking about all these old records that used to be 72 minutes because of CDs. And so the long player home listening, I think a lot about how impactful that the sort of disdainful chapter in Generation Ecstasy by Simon Reynolds about IDM and home listening. Like, he kind of hates it, but he does a great job of explaining the appeal of home listening and IDM and things like that in the late 90s. A lot of those ideas were really interesting to me, who was definitely a home listener. Kind of going back to that, going to longer players, not that all these are long players, but, you know, getting into this sort of longer player approach. Anyways, that's Yield. That's my best attempt of explaining Yield. There are currently, in some form of production, 6 releases on Yield. One came out a while ago when I had kind of a false start with Yield. It's a wonderful record by Paurl Walsh, who we just talked about his new record coming out of Yield, Singulars, that one's worth your time, and you should go look at it. And then the other idea I've been banding about on this newsletter is this idea of taking a more gardening approach, and like, this is all a convergence of a lot of these ideas. I'm using Yield as a testbed for a lot of these ideas of getting out of the press cycle that is so narrow. You know, there's still a press cycle, but how do I there's an album cycle, but what's getting away from having the press cycle drive the album cycle? And how can I do that? How can I introduce all of this idea of Yield to somebody quickly, like a DJ, a journalist, friends and family, other people on Yield? Was a really tough thing for me. I felt like you had to listen to 2 or 3 of them to get the idea of where I was going. And so I was struggling with what to do with that. I had the whole idea of the gardening, not gambling idea as well, like how to approach press slightly differently. And we're also doing stuff that less relevant for today, but a lot of these releases are doing non-traditional release cycles in terms of physical editions. We'll get into that later, but yeah, all these ideas that I've been playing with are kind of coming into, or being, Yield's kind of a sandbox for all these things. Anyways, I want to show you something I spun up this week, which is a private website, or a password protected website, that I actually ended up calling The Garden. Maybe that's dumb. I mean, maybe all this is dumb, but I don't care. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how it works on this. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. So this is a page that the whole idea of this is I want to give somebody, whether it's a journalist, a DJ, just a friend that I want to kind of catch up on what is this thing. Somebody I could hand this yield garden to, and they would go, "Oh, I get it," and they would be given a chance to dive deeper. This will be kind of a doorway to all the press packet stuff, all the EPKs, all the sort of everything you need to know. But it's making it clear that like all these releases are of a piece. So I have a little bit of an artist statement about yield, got some pictures I like. I have the garden down here with the fun effect. This is all way overblown and overdone, but I'm having a good time with that. So here are the 6 things in production. Some of these don't have art yet. So I'm talking about these things pre-finishing the art. Like, and this is part of the sort of gardening thing. These seeds have been planted. These masters exist, but the art doesn't exist. Paurl does exist, so you can download the masters. You can listen on Bandcamp. There's also this idea of sort of marking at what stage are all these things. I have a little legend down here to help you understand what those mean. Yeah, so the Paurl you can go listen to. The singulars we just talked about sending to press. There's another status that's on here, which is we have it in a releasable form, but we're going into the pre-release cycle and we're going into the more traditional press cycle. That will be marked as pre-release, I believe. I have that down here. Pre-release, available for pre-order online. EPK is done. Traditional press cycle phase. Sending to blogs, radio, and building buzz before official release. So, yeah, the nice thing about this is if I send you this, you can download either, you get sent to a Dropbox where you can download a zip file of either the MP3 or the WAV of any of these albums, and you can start understanding what these albums are. And while some of these albums might not be out for many months, I'm trying to do this in a big chunk over the summer into the fall so that yield kind of arrives all at once and people kind of go, "Oh, I see what it is." And that will encourage people who think they kind of fit in to send more demos and things like that. That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about this. It really is turning out really well. I'm gonna use our time together, just the end of our time together, to go really quickly through these. But to be clear, journalists, DJs, close friends who are really curious about this, get in touch. My email is Sam at Debacle Records. You can hit me up on Insta. You can hit me up on through my Squarespace, through my Bandcamp, all those ways, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm on Blue Sky. And there's a pretty good chance I'll let you grab these releases before they're out because, or, you know, in raw files, because it's more important to me that people understand this and want to become supporters kind of from this sort of top down, or getting in at the basement, like getting in at the beginning of this idea. I think that could be fun. And I'd like to create some excitement, I guess. Sorry, getting a little lost here. So really quickly, the Paurl Walsh, it's out. Go listen to it right now. Pocket World. It's sort of a bunch of different sounds, a bunch of different textures. It sounds like anything from Sun to Kangding Ray to Tobacco. Oh, and some people have bounced at this. I almost never show recommended if you like or related artists in a public facing thing. This is a shingle that I'm hanging out to people who have no context. Using those levers in something that is foreign, I don't know any of these names, you know, as a record label person who's shown a lot of things, I think journalists would agree that a little bit of directional context to understand if they should click on this really is helpful. And what am I getting myself into? And yes, the shorthand of 3 artists recommended if you like is ham-fisted. I think most journalists understand that how that works. I think most DJs understand how that works, but it does open doors. I would not put this on a public facing site. I'm a little bit reticent to show you, but again, this newsletter is about, you know, for the people who really want to know things. And so this is me showing more clarity about this stuff. But this is about lowering friction to more people hearing these records and getting bought in earlier. So while I understand that these can be really toxic and I don't like including them on the public, like on the Bandcamp or something like that, No way. But here, I think they're very useful and directional. Um, anyways, Paurl, I love how much it reminded me of tobacco, but like mixed with more high fidelity IDM and dance music. It's such a cool record. It flows together in one piece, but as you go, you're kind of as the tracks go through, you're you're hitting these different biomes, and the record sleeve kind of does the same thing, where it's like slowly transitioning from piece to piece. Sean Wapple did the art. It's really cool. We got the little yield indicator on the side. It's cool. It's great. I mean, it's really good. There's a reason I started with it. We'll get into it, but the Steve Eldon Kerr and that record made me go, maybe I should start on an imprint. Singulars we talked all about last week. A kind of post-rocky, jazzy, really hard to describe, fantastic record. I played a full thing and I played it behind me yesterday or last week. Noise Witch is a anonymous person who I found and helped craft an EP out of EP album, kind of in between, out of tracks, earlier tracks from their career. They've moved more in towards you can listen to a lot of this stuff on their Bandcamp. They're very accomplished. They're very good at what they do. And when we sequenced out this EP in the order and the way it all kind of came together, it's really good. It's maybe the most commercially viable stuff, and it's also just very listenable. People who I wouldn't expect to like it are like, wow, this is really good. I'm really lucky to have just been like kind of ping-ponging around Bandcamp and find this stuff. I think this person deserves a lot more attention. I think um, their hip hop stuff, their more recent hip hop and blended stuff is really good too. I could see a future of us working with that too. They have other projects, but this is a nice slice of just, even if not much happens besides this EP, it is really good. It is really, really good. My friend Mitch Bell and myself are working right now on the art for this, and it is looking awesome. So, Teirs La Familia. When we get into this, we'll go deep. This whole experience has been amazing working with them out of New York. Really great piece of the puzzle for what we want. As I said here, Dan Deacon Liars, Gang Gang Dance. Kind of not even enough of like what it is. It's so poppy. It's so noisy. The pop jams are so crisp and so fun. It makes me think of like 5RC records or Load records, or maybe not even Load, but like Trouble Man would have liked these early DFA. But it's more than that. It's really unique to the artists involved. Lots of cool people are now involved in this band as it's growing out. If you're in the area, if you're on the East Coast, I think they play it quite a bit, and it is not to be missed. It's really cool mashing up of all these genres, and the tone is so good. It's so cool and yet uncool. It's such a cool thing. I'm in love with where we ended up with that record. That record came in as a demo. I had some feedback. There was a lot of work done by the artist to make it even better, and it came out amazing. I think it just came out amazing. We're going to do some interesting things with that record. Okay, so another foundational person that we've been working on these records for forever. I will tell a much more in-depth story of us meeting and how complicated it was. It's insane how long it's taken me to get this core Heavy Zephyrs album out. Steve, I'm sorry. It's coming soon. We actually created an EP that's like kind of a good introduction to Steve. He has all sorts of stuff that is very different even than what we are going to start with. These are instrumental electronica albums, but he is a very talented songwriter, singer. A lot of stuff has this folk element. He has all these influences of like African pop, and everything he does has this like slight undercurrent of more interesting polyrhythms than you'd expect, more interesting textures, a lot of multi-instrumentation. This was definitely like me locking into, I should make an imprint for this. I think Heavy Zephyrs stands up next to a bunch of pillars of the music styles that we're exploring here. shoulder to shoulder. I think we've ended up on a sequence and a selection of his earlier tracks, recontextualized, and it's just phenomenal. I think Steve is so sick of thinking about this record and has moved on to like 4 other records since, but it's great. And we've actually crafted a very good companion piece as an introduction, the Joy in January EP that's going to be out very soon. Just need to finish some art and figure out sequencing. Yeah, if you want to hear any of these things, if you want to ask me anything about this, if you want to submit your own stuff, get in touch. I would love to hear from PR, press, anybody, kind of other labels about this approach of like making a private home base for your stuff that isn't just relying on Bandcamp, and sort of allowing people to kind of poke their head in and see stuff before it's done. What do you think about that? I'm really excited about it. I really hope it's going to work out. I don't know. It was a lot of work, but I was happy to get it done. I think it looks pretty fun. It's a little over the top, but I am stoked about it. Tell me what you think. Again, I think somebody who comes here for the Nick Chalace records, I think it would be hard for me to convince you to go try all of those records. I think there's a couple records in there that you would probably like if you gave it the chance. I also acknowledge that I'm taking some big swings here. So I will be talking about both Debacle and Yield. I would love it if people took a chance on both of those things. I also think the stuff I've been talking about around experimentation and how you run a label will apply to both. And I think I'm going to do the most experimentation with Yield because it is a new thing without legacy. And I hope that is interesting to folks, regardless of the content of the music. But to me, it's all the same. It's all just music I like. And I hope if you have a similar thing about this type of music, you will go check this stuff out. I hope we can get a whole chunk of this out very quickly so you all can hear it. I should play something on the way out. What should I play? I'll play something for Noise Witch. It's not mastered yet, but it sounds real good. I may as well play something. And that's probably the biggest leap I have on that label or on that imprint right now and that upcoming slate. So you will kind of be able to go, Paurl, singulars that I heard last week, okay, I'm starting to see pretty big swath of what we're trying to do. Yeah, this one I would really love some feedback on because this is me both taking a risk on the whole idea of this thing and taking a risk on that whole idea of like a sort of backdoor place where people can see everything, and then once they've seen everything and can download, they can also go directly. The idea is they can go to the specific EPKs and they can go to the specific Bandcamps, and it's sort of choose your own adventure of like, what about this appeals to you? Do you want to go check it out? And it's just a nice little thing I can drop in the inbox of a lot of times like a radio DJ might say, hey, can I get a link? And it's like, yeah, here you go. Right here, right now. Here's everything. Okay. That's a lot of rambling. Hope it made sense. Like I said, I'm sick. I do not look rested or I don't sound great. Stay safe. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself. I'll see you next week.